Welcome to Silverstone for ITV's special preview of British Grand Prix weekend. I suppose it's an adventure, if you like that sort of thing. Silverstone in April is a whole new ball game, and believe me, it's very heavy going at the moment. Hello there, good afternoon. This is the first time the British Grand Prix has been staged in April, and there won't be too many complaints if it's the last. Coming to Silverstone today has been a pretty unpleasant experience. The organisers have major problems.
Well, basically we have to make an announcement, having consulted with the local police, that the heavy rain over the last 13-14 days has caused severe damage to the public car parks. So we've taken the decision to close the public car parks for tomorrow, Saturday qualifying day, in order that we can prepare the car parks properly and deal with Sunday, the race day, and to deliver to the fans an enjoyable Sunday Grand Prix day.
Just to underline that for you then, all public car parks closed tomorrow. Only travel by coach or, if you've got one, by helicopter. Ticket refunds will be available, and those will happen automatically. Don't phone up. I'm assured by the Silverstone organisers that will happen automatically for you. A sellout, of course, on Sunday on Grand Prix Day, and the organisers assure us everything will be okay and all car parks will be open. Tony Jardine with me as always. Also John Watson, winner here back in '81 in the McLaren, and a lot to do with Silverstone at the moment. John, I've just gone outside and a bedraggled fan has come to me and said, what are we doing here at this time of year? Can you answer him?
Well, I would say send your letters to Paris, or in fact now to Geneva, to the FIA, because it was the governing body of motorsport that in fact brought forward the Grand Prix date from July to this April date. And Silverstone really had no option or no choice. We had to accept the date. We hoped that it would be a fine Easter weekend, and we still hope it will be fine Saturday and Sunday, but clearly with the rain that's fallen over the last number of days, it's been very difficult.
Sadly, the weather forecasts disagree with you, John, don't they? Tony, is it a much more dangerous game when the conditions are like this?
Well, yeah, I mean, it always is. We see the superb skills of the drivers, you know, the Schumachers, the cream coming to the top, but of course it's very, very dangerous. The spray, the chance of hitting another car, of catapulting over another car, we've seen it time and again in the past. Very, very dangerous, and we've seen some very wet British Grand Prix in the past. You know, look at 98, Hakkinen spinning off and Schumacher winning in the rain.
Winning in the rain in the pits. And if you're hearing a few sounds behind me, by the way, it's the Formula 3000 having their practice session, and that's due to finish in around about 10 minutes time. Very wet going, as you can see. Well, the British Grand Prix is the fourth race of the season. We've been to Australia, we've been to Brazil, we've been to Italy, and so far all we've seen is red at the top of the podium.
Welcome to sunny Silverstone. Now, the first three races of the season have been held on entirely different racetracks. At the sharp end, it's been McLaren against Ferrari, as always. They've been very close in performance. I think the McLaren is maybe 1/10 of a second faster per lap. So why is Ferrari so far in front?
Michael Schumacher has only started on the front row on one occasion, making several critical mistakes in qualifying, such as this one in Melbourne, just when it mattered most. But in race trim, he was stunning as ever. This sprint in Imola put him ahead of Hakkinen for yet another win. Barrichello's been solid as the number 2 at Ferrari, leading both the first two races for a short time, but yielding here to Michael Schumacher in Imola. Barrichello off the pace there. Hakkinen, though, lots of reliability problems. This one in Melbourne, and the face says it all. His teammate Coulthard had no better luck. A DNF in Melbourne, and here a stunning drive in Brazil, minus the first three gears, second only to Michael Schumacher. But later that evening, they would find the car outside of the regulations, and despite an appeal in Paris later in the week, Coulthard lost those vital 6 points.
If anything, the midfield have been even closer. Jaguar, Jordan, Williams, Benetton, BAR. On the racetrack, they've been as close as their trucks are parked here in the paddock. From 5th to 15th, take your pick.
Jordan have been best of the rest. Trulli and Frentzen have looked good and fairly evenly matched too. But the car's been a little disappointing for speed and especially reliability. The team must now surely be looking forward to a work-supported engine for the future. Terrible start for Jaguar. Eddie Irvine had a couple of good qualifying starts, but 2 spins in the first 2 races, hair ripping off the suspension in Brazil. And Johnny Herbert, an even more dire situation, says it's the worst start ever to a Grand Prix season for him. Once again the car being pushed away. Jackie Stewart stood down from the helm. His son Paul has health problems, and nasty rumours about Johnny being turfed out of the team even before the end of the season. The new BMW Williams package has shown surprising pace right from the get-go. Ralf Schumacher says this is the best Formula 1 car he's ever driven. But his young teammate Jenson Button has really matched him for pace in the first 2 races, and here in Brazil making a good move on Verstappen that would eventually net him a World Championship point. Several engine failures have cost them valuable track time. Flavio Briatore back at the helm of Benetton. Renault have bought the team. Fisichella occasionally on the pace. Vert struggling a little. Salo Sauber Ferrari has been a good combination. Finally the team are demonstrating some of their winter testing pace on race day when it really matters. This is the kind of action we've enjoyed in midfield. Prost are nowhere to be seen, but this gaggle is headed by the BAR of Villeneuve. That Honda engine and the team going much better.
But it's not just those more established names either that are quick. All 22 cars on the grid are very well funded. Even Minardi and Arrows have very pacey cars. Roll on the next 14 races.
Yes, indeed, Martin, thank you very much. So Michael Schumacher on a roll then with those 3 successive wins. Ferrari teammate Barrichello second ahead of Fisichella. Then world champion Häkkinen and Ralf Schumacher. Villeneuve, by the way, has scored in Melbourne and Imola. In the constructors, Ferrari have opened up a massive 29-point gap on McLaren. Fisichella's put Benetton up to 3rd. Jordan and Williams neck and neck in 4th. As well as Tony and John. Absolutely delighted we have a surprise guest, David Coulthard. Many thanks for popping over to join us. David, we're going to see your practice sessions in just a moment, but how hard is it out there for you, the driver, at the moment?
Well, it's very difficult because obviously the conditions are changing quite a bit. Even if the track conditions are dry, we have such a strong wind out there, and this airfield circuit is affected quite heavily by that. So I think this is probably one of the most tricky tracks to drive in those conditions. But ultimately it means that if you do a good lap time at the end of it, then it's very satisfying.
There's 2 other very important factors certainly here at Stowe, the wind and the temperature as far as you're concerned.
Yeah, temperature obviously has an effect on the tyres and the way it performs. A little bit easier on the car in terms of the mechanical side. Obviously the temperatures aren't getting quite so hot, but the wind issue, it's quite a big problem for all of the cars on this track.
Just going back to Martin's report there, have you recovered from being docked those 6 points at Interlagos?
No, I'm still very disappointed to have lost those points because I feel that I worked hard for those points given the problems that I had in the race. And if you look at the lead we had over the 3rd car, there was no way, even with the 1 millimetre or the 2 millimetres that the front wing was out, that we gained a performance advantage from it. I do understand that rules are rules and you have to run within those rules, but I think there was a possibility for the appeal court to maybe show a little bit of leniency because of the circumstances that led to the problem.
Got a heck of a job to catch them now, haven't you?
Yeah, it's a big gap between ourselves now and Michael, but it can be done, and we're certainly not going to sit back and watch him run to the championship. We're going to fight him all the way.
Okay, David, thanks very much indeed for the moment. This actually gives us a rare opportunity, this programme, to have a look at the practice sessions we've been talking about. Let's join Martin and Murray.
We don't normally see the 2 one-hour sessions of free practice on Friday morning, so it's worth establishing the fact that the times do not count for the grid, for the race itself. David Coulthard was getting in his car, then out goes the first of the Prosts, Jean Alesi. And Martin, it started to rain later on, but the problem this morning, of course, was this terrific wind that was blowing across the track.
Yes, it does affect the circuit here very much. Obviously an old airfield many years ago, over 50 years ago. It's up on a plateau, very exposed, and very much depends which direction the wind is blowing from. If you're turning into a 20-mile-an-hour wind, it gives you more downforce into a corner, but if you turn across the wind in a high-speed corner, really does unsettle the car.
Mika Häkkinen finishing the lap there. He was fastest at this point of the session. He didn't stay fastest, But really, we shouldn't get too exercised about that, because what they're doing in this session is checking things like the setup of the car and various other technical points. That's Rubens Barrichello in the Ferrari. He went out fairly early. Michael Schumacher, his teammate, the fancied man for Sunday's race, of course, left it very late indeed. But Martin, they after all of them had been here for most of last week, testing when the conditions were good and bad.
Yes, but it takes a very brave man to sit in the pit saying, OK, I know the setup exactly, my car's fine. The damp track, the wind conditions you've already mentioned, they want to go out and really make sure the car is handling as they expected from the test last week. And there's probably some new pieces on each of these cars, constant development going on. But I remember when I drove for McLaren, for example, in '94, we did 42 days testing here at Silverstone during the season.
Well, there's a man who needs all the mileage he can get. Jenson Button, the young British hope in the Williams BMW. His teammate Ralf Schumacher there talking to Gerhard Berger, the boss of the BMW sporting side. Oh, and look down there, the green Jaguar, Johnny Herbert, surely the most unlucky man in Grand Prix racing.
Yes, why is this, that this can happen to one driver and not another? We've looked into it with Coulthard as well, because his McLaren over a 2-year period was more unreliable than Häkkönen's. Is it driving style? Is it the group of mechanics working on the car? When you analyse all of that, very often it's not, and it's so difficult to pinpoint exactly why one driver tends to have more problems than the other, and Johnny certainly has his fair share. Mind you, Irv's had a few problems too. Ralf Schumacher bailing out of the car, Murray.
Yes, not altogether unexpected. Sadly, these days, we expect the Jaguars to be in trouble. They've got this problem with the Cosworth engine. BMW, which power the Williams, are an entirely new team back in Grand Prix racing after retiring in 1983. And Mika Häkkinen pushed back into the garage. Now we're getting to about the point in the session where the skies overhead deposited their contents on the track. It got very wet indeed, and as you see, the Ferrari with the barge boards, those yellow covers there going over the barge boards, those are the things that gave the problems in Malaysia.
Yes, I think Ferrari may be using that almost as a PR thing now. Yellow, of course, is the house colour of Ferrari. Many people think that it's red, but Häkkinen, he's seen the rain coming down. You saw the Union Jacks there stiff with the wind. But Michael Schumacher, of course, they haven't had as much testing. Ferrari, based over in Italy, most of their testing is done in Italy and Barcelona. He's going to maximise any chance he gets to check the Ferrari out in the wet conditions.
Yeah, Ferrari are quite happy if it's wet, actually, because they say we've got the man in Grand Prix racing who is best in the rain. Eddie Irvine there in the Jaguar actually finished up with the second fastest time of all, just under half a second slower than Heinz-Harald Frentzen, who was quickest in the Jordan. But at this stage of the 1 hour session, the conditions were really very difficult indeed from the point of view of setting up quick times. All you could do was see what the track was like. So Heinz-Harald Frentzen was fastest, followed by Irvine, Coulthard, Häkkinen, Trulli and Jacques Villeneuve, the top 6, with 1.1 seconds covering them. But we have still, don't forget, got the second full 1 hour session of practice to be completed today, and we'll be telling you about that later on.
So then, David, I would think in those conditions you must just be pleased to get round and get a decent time on the clock.
Yeah, I'm not too disappointed with the time. I think that it's reasonable to expect that the Jaguar and the Jordan were probably running lighter fuel than we were. We were sticking to our normal Friday programme, concentrating on race setup.
John, let's come to you. How important is it for a British driver like David to do well in his home Grand Prix?
I think it's very important to do well, but remember, David is British, but he's not English. Eddie Irvine's Irish, and he's British as well.
What's the point you're trying to make?
Well, you know, I sometimes wonder, does David really get a fair crack of the whip from the national press, which actually is the English press? And we've got Johnny Herbert, who is English, and Jenson Button, English as well. Jenson is the future as far as the media and press are concerned. And sometimes I feel David has not been dealt as fairly by the press as his results sometimes would justify.
Is that fair comment? Do you feel hard done by, badly treated by the old scribes?
Well, thank you, John, for putting me in a difficult position. No, I think that there was a comment at an award ceremony the other night that said that Eddie Irvine was British driver up until he lost the championship, or lost the chance to win the championship. Then he became the Irishman again.
Yes.
And maybe that's fair enough. But the fact is, I got a British passport. I was born in Scotland, proud of that. And I need as much support from the British media, which John quite rightly says is largely an English media, to get my story across.
I think, talking to Eddie, it doesn't mean that much to him to drive here. Does it mean a lot to you?
Absolutely, yeah. I like all Brits. I'm proud of what we have here. We're our own little island, and it's got the best group of people in the world. So we're going to defend it against all those nasty foreigners. So, my first job is to try and obviously get in front of Michael this weekend.
Okay, thank you, David. David had a very interesting second session, by the way. We'll be seeing that a little bit later on. Plenty to look forward to, a competition to win a super sporting weekend, your chance to go to the FA Cup final and the European Grand Prix at the Nürburgring. You stay in the dry and we will bring it to you. You're back with us at soggy Silverstone. Delighted to say things have quietened down here a bit, but this weekend drivers' safety is going to be a prime topic, particularly bearing in mind the conditions we have here and remembering Michael Schumacher's crash last year. We'll review that accident in just a moment, but last week Riccardo Zonta in the BAR had an absolutely terrifying experience. He lost a wheel, he flew over the tyre wall, he escaped happily with just a cut finger, this after landing upside down. Our thanks to Autosport, by the way, for that picture. Zonta crashing at Stowe, where Michael Schumacher went off last year.
The red flag, the race is being stopped.
That's Schumacher, isn't it? Michael slamming the steering wheel. I don't know whether it's through frustration that he's out of the race, or frustration because he knows he's injured something. Michael's struggling to get out of the car a little bit. I wonder if he's hurt his legs.
For sure, I think Michael Schumacher is not going to be taking the restart, and you could be seeing the end of his World Championship chances.
He's waving, look, that's Schumi with his arm up in the air saying,
well, thank
I'm not too bad.
Thank heavens for that. That is more of a relief to me than I can tell you.
Let's talk psychology. Just over there last year, Michael Schumacher had a nasty crash, broke his leg. You've had three very bad ones, Martin. At Monaco, I remember, at Dallas, and then at Melbourne. What's the driver's state of mind after something like that? Are you worried about getting back in the car and getting into battle again?
Your first thought is to get back in the car either immediately if you're not injured, or as soon as possible after you've healed up. It's a mentality that you have. We're professional racing drivers, and that's what we do for a living. So the thought of, I don't fancy that anymore, just isn't on the agenda at all. Interestingly, some drivers say, look, if the car fails, I'm more comfortable with that because, it shouldn't fail again. Other drivers say, I made a mistake, I know I won't make that mistake again. I'm definitely from that school. If I made a mistake and went in the wall, I thought, okay, I can fix that. But if the brakes failed, as happened to Michael Schumacher, that would rattle my cage, funnily enough, more than a driver error. But Michael was very much of the opinion, listen, it was a clear-cut problem with the brake system. I know why I went off, and that's that. But he just wanted to get back in the car, and I can understand that.
I was amazed at Monaco when you had a really nasty one in the Tyrrell. You ran back, and if I remember correctly, you wanted to get in the car, and they wouldn't let you?
I jumped in the T car, the spare car. My sort of sixth sense got me back to the pit somehow. I was actually about 30% conscious, I think. And Ken Tyrrell was my team boss, and he plugged into the radio and said, you've got 8 minutes left to qualify. I said, that's great, no problem. Which way do I turn when I get out of the pits? Which was his... That's when he realised that I wasn't altogether with it. But, as I said, you just want to... And when you've had a big crash, you want to distance yourself from the car itself. You especially if it's your fault, you want to disassociate yourself and say, that wasn't me, somebody else did that.
Well, Michael's been saying to all the press and anybody that would listen to him, I'm not the least bit worried. I've had testing here, I've got in the car, I've gone round the corners quickly. But nevertheless, when you get to race conditions, is there going to be some reflex thing in the mind that says, I'm in the race and this is where it happened last year?
No. He'll I'm sure the first time he went round in the test, he gave it a bit of a glance and thought, oh, OK, I'm back and I beat you in the end. He won't think about it again. And Michael's quite clear he's not going to let it affect him, and he won't.
He's been saying that Silverstone have done what was necessary to make that corner safer. What does that mean?
Well, they've increased the tyre barriers and the way they're put together, and many other aspects of how an accident can be accommodated when you arrive into what is a 180-degree corner at 195 miles an hour.
So apparently it's all right. Well, when the race begins, we'll see.
Indeed, we will, Murray. What about your psychology as regards accidents? I mean, do you think about them, or when something happens like happened here to Michael last year, just put it out of your mind when you race here? What occurs?
Well, absolutely, you just put it out of your mind. I've, touch wood, thankfully never had any big accident, but whenever I have gone off the circuit, even if you've had a little bang to the head or whatever, you literally want to get back in the car. It's just it's a hurdle that you have to get over because it's getting in the way of you doing the lap time. So I think all the drivers get over these incidents very quickly, and we want to be back out there and trying to get the quickest time.
Are there any particular circuits that drivers look at and think that one's a bit dodgier than another?
Yeah, of course. You have to give more respect to some corners on tracks around the world than you would on others. If you've got a lot of runoff, then you won't even give it a second thought when you enter the corner as to whether you're going to try and go a little bit quicker. If it's somewhere like Monaco or if it's somewhere like Spa, where some of the corners you don't have a lot of runoff, then you really have a good deep breath when you enter the corner. But ultimately, that adds to the reward and the enjoyment when you come out the other side.
Right. David, we're going to see your second practice session in just a few minutes' time. I know you've got to leave us, but I just want to show everybody out there what happened to you in the second session. There you are in car going off, and the story doesn't actually end there, does it?
No, absolutely not. I pulled off the circuit because I had lost hydraulic pressure with the engine. It then started again and got me back half on the track. Unfortunately, when the pickup vehicle came to try and drag me out of the mud, it got stuck. As you can see, I took my boots off. I jokingly said that I buy my boots and the socks are provided by the team, so I'd rather lose a pair of socks than have to buy a new set of boots. But I went there to try and help them get the car back onto the track. But really, the conditions here is terrible, not only for the marshals, but for all the spectators as well, who've lost some cars in the car parks.
And a vivid example there of why the car parks are going to be shut tomorrow for qualifying. And before you leave us, David, you came through last year, you won here. What are your expectations this weekend?
Well, of course, I'd love to win again here. I think that would just be fantastic. But there's two main people, I think, that are on my way in trying to do that, and that's obviously Michael and Mika. But nonetheless, I'm going to be trying as hard as I possibly can in qualifying and then ultimately in the race to try and see if I can get another 10 points here.
I'll let you into a little secret. We have a sweep at every Grand Prix weekend, and I put your name at the top more often than not, and I've dropped dollars, pesetas, Brazilian whatevers all over the place. So is it worth me putting my little pound coin in there this time?
Well, it's going to be difficult. There's no question that both Michael, with his confidence just now at the start of the season, 3 wins, Mika's determination, obviously. I'm battling against my two main rivals who are double world champions, and I'm still trying to get that level of confidence that you get from winning a championship. So it's not easy, but I'm close. I'm knocking on the door, and I just need to have the reliability and get a good start, and then I think it's possible.
David, thanks for joining us today. We really appreciate it, and of course, the very best of luck this weekend.
Thanks.
Good. Well, over the past couple of seasons, you probably got used to seeing Sylvester Stallone around the Formula One circuit. Mr. Stallone was trying to get things together for an F1 movie. The project never materialised, so Grand Prix, the movie, back in the 60s, remains the definitive F1 film. And we've brought together the star of that film, James Garner, with a modern F1 champion.
The 1966 movie Grand Prix inspired a whole generation of Formula One fans. More than 30 years on, its star, James Garner, is back with BAR's Jacques Villeneuve for a celebratory sequel at Monza, a circuit steeped in history.
It's a great racing movie. It really showed the level of dangers and risks that we're taking.
It was one of the most, exhilarating experiences of my life. 6 months of driving these cars with the best drivers and the best circuits in the world, and it was thrilling. It really was.
A lot of the scenes were shot at the actual Grand Prix that year, and there were no stand-ins. Garner did all his own driving.
You'd be surprised how fast you can learn when you have, you know, all these race drivers on all these circuits. And we'd learn them 3 or 4 blocks at a time, the circuits, and then eventually we'd be able to learn the whole circuit.
I can go? Yeah.
So, how would the 97 world champion shape up in a car that was older than him?
I didn't feel like there was any point in doing it unless you did it the real way. We had the belts taken out, so it was more real. In today's cars, we are very tight in the car. We don't move an inch. So to be in a car like that, we'll just move around like in a normal road car and be completely out in the open. You don't feel that secure. Once you're in there, you just still push a little bit and try to have fun. And it still felt like a race car. It had a good. The engine wasn't too bad. There was some beef, some power in there. But I wasn't sure what would happen once I got sideways. It happened a few times, but I wasn't going fast enough for it to be scary.
I think he's enjoying himself.
They were taking more risks, but they probably weren't pushing the limit as much. Because anytime you made a mistake, you paid quite dearly for it. So it was just very, very, very different.
The banking hasn't been used since 1968, but it's still a monument to Monza's glory days.
We would have to do a shot where we'd do 6 or 7 cars. This car had to pass him on the left, you know, at this corner, whatever. And then when we ended the shot, we all turned around and raced back. And that was fun.
For the first time since finishing the movie all those years ago, Garner was back at the wheel of a Formula One car, and time stood still.
A lot of memories here. I started driving a little while ago, and as I was coming back into the pits, I started giggling. Just giggling. It was so much fun.
That was good, like a kid. That's good.
Yeah.
I had a blast. It was great. And it's good we didn't do too many laps because you get comfortable, then you start pushing, and that's probably when you start hurting yourself. But no, I had a very good time.
There'll probably never be another movie like Grand Prix. It's still a true classic.
Lovely memories there. Martin Brundle's movie career, though, on hold. I think he fancied the role as the ageing driver, but his grid walk remains one of the highlights of our weekend's coverage. Watch out, by the way, for some very special characters with him on Sunday afternoon. In the meantime, though, we've assembled the best of Martin when it's time to go walkies.
There's something curious about this broadcast.
Sylvester, can we have a word? What's
on my good side.
On your good side? Yeah, you did tell me it's going to be your right-hand side. What's special about it? That one didn't get hit quite as many times? Yeah, okay. I don't know whether anybody will talk to me. I'll give it a try. If I was them, I wouldn't, I have to tell you now. But anyway, let's give it a try. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. Mika. Hello, Mika. Are you interested to talk to me today?
No.
Okay, good. So we'll carry on then. Michael. Okay, BSF have beat me to it. Okay, no, they haven't. I think we've just pulled a bit of a fast one here.
We're going to first probably do all the preliminary shooting around the world at many of the races, and then choose a track where we do the special stunts, most likely in Hungary or Montreal.
Good stuff. Who plays Murray Walker in this film?
Robert Redford, I believe.
Here's Bernie Ecclestone. Look, Bernie, how are you doing?
I'm not finding him.
Right. Well, he's my minder today because thank you very much. Thank you, Ron. He's my minder today, Bernie, because I hear you tried to steal my job in Imola. Why is that?
Well, I thought somebody should do it the way you do things.
All right, so will you leave my headset on because I need to listen to these people.
You don't know what they're talking about anyway.
Who's going to win the World Championship?
The one with the most points, I'm sure. I don't know who it's going to be, though, at the moment.
All right, thank you for that valid contribution.
I knew you couldn't work it out.
No, I couldn't. That's why I asked you. See you later. I've written a script, right? Edge Frentzen into the gravel into the first corner. Drill Irvine.
Yeah.
Schumacher and Hakkinen are going to have each other off. Follow Coulthard. He's going to come in 10 laps to go because he's going to be so surprised the car's still running. Yeah. You go on to win. Yellow flags waving. Yeah. How about that?
I think you should drive and I'll do the commentary.
But if you have to think about training, diet, working for the sponsors, and all.
We just found a prize for we just found a prize for a competition sometime later this year.
I'll then do the clap for a while. No, you can have it.
No, I need it. I need it.
Plenty more. You can keep it.
No. But I want this particular one. Look, from the Monza grid, Damon Hill, Grecian 2000, and Dandruff and everything. Naomi Campbell. Excuse me, dare I touch her on the back? Okay, what do I do? How do I do this, Keith? Do I just sort of... I don't want to be accused of... Naomi, it's good to see you here in the Grand Prix. Naomi Campbell, what are you doing here?
I came to watch.
Keep enjoying yourself down there, Martin. Strong journalistic bent to all his interviews, isn't it?
Let's have a word with Elizabeth Hurley. She's here on the grid. See if I can... Can you follow me, Keith? Elizabeth Hurley, hello. You're soaking up the atmosphere. Are you a Grand Prix fan?
I never have been before. This is my first time, and now I'm going to become a groupie.
Yeah. What do you like most about it?
Actually, the boys are pretty cute. I can't believe some of the ones I've been introduced to. It's all very exciting.
So the technology and the speed at the moment hasn't impressed you as much as the boys?
I haven't really seen any speed yet. I'm looking forward to that. We're going up to the first corner, as for the takeoff, or whatever they call it here.
It's called the start. What's all this about Brands Hatch? I hear you sort of done a little bit of a deal with Brands Hatch for the Grand Prix. Do you think it'll ever go there?
There or Silverstone for sure.
There, well, I love it because you're always so absolutely. You never sit on the fence, do you? You've got to be solid. We all know where we stand. Which is fastest, the Ferrari or the McLaren? Ferrari seems to have a one-lap pace, but the McLaren are on the front row of the grid. My tip at the moment is the piano sitting here at the front of the grid. I've never seen that before. Mr. Prescott. Any chance of having a quick word with us live on ITV? Is this your first Grand Prix?
No, I've been 3 or 4 times, but what a wonderful day, what a wonderful event, and I'm giving the prize, so that's a great privilege. Best driver to win, but I'm hoping it's Damien.
Sorry, who are you looking for? You're looking for Damien?
Damien, yes.
All right. What do you think of today's Formula One drivers, really?
Very conservative.
In what way?
No, out of the car, I mean. They're very conservative. We're lacking a few characters like you. I mean, you was a bit wild and mad and outspoken and things, and they're not like that anymore.
That is all. He'll be wearing his wellies for the real thing on Sunday. Damien not driving on Sunday. John Prescott probably very relieved about that. Well, Heinz-Harald Frentzen, quickest for Jordan in the first practice session with the best of the second hour. Very wet it was. Let's rejoin Murray.
Sadly, the second 1 hour practice session this afternoon wasn't any better than the first this morning. In fact, it was considerably worse as it ended. When the session began, the track was fairly dry. You can see the dry portions on the circuit there, and you can see Michael Schumacher really trying to find the dry line in the Ferrari. But then it got progressively worse. Drivers started to go off. There's the first of them, Jean Lacey, in the Prost, and there was a lot more to come. The teams, of course, had fitted wet weather tyres. Nothing else was going to do in today's conditions. And we had the unusual sight, sadly these days, of Johnny Herbert actually doing some laps in the Jaguar. He'd stopped this morning, they'd put the problem right, he went out this afternoon and he got in quite a few laps. So hopefully he'll be in better shape for the 2 45-minute practice sessions tomorrow, followed of course by the 1 hour qualifying session. Frentzen did quite a few laps in the Jordan, watched by his team boss, Eddie Jordan, keeping his ears and his head warm. And Frentzen looking good in the Jordan, and if the weather conditions are like this in qualifying and in the race itself, they may well suit him. things got progressively worse. David Coulthard went off in the McLaren, as you can see, and not only could he not get back on the track, but the four-wheel recovery vehicle that was supposed to tow him out got bogged down. David tried to get the car into neutral, then decided that discretion was the better part of valour, and very sensibly climbed over the safety fence. And incidentally, he took his shoes off then and walked back. But the red flag came out, the session was stopped to enable them to recover David's McLaren. And when it restarted, people started going off. Mazzacane, you saw there, this is Jean Alesi doing a full 360-degree spin. Jenson Button tried for a 360, but just failed. And so that was the end of the session. Heinz Harald Frentzen was still fastest, Irvine second, and Coulthard third.
How are things shaping up for your British Grand Prix debut, Jenson?
I don't know really, it's difficult to say. It's been a bit wet today to tell. I think if the race is this wet as it has been this afternoon, I don't think we'll be, we won't be running on our own. There'll be a pace car on the circuit at the same time, I think. But no, it's going okay. It's a bit strange getting used to these wet conditions. I don't think I've ever driven anything like this.
It's the first time you've actually been out in front of the home fans. Does that make any difference, or is it just like any other race?
No, it is good. Being in my home circuit, Silverstone, first British Grand Prix, so it's looking good for the weekend, and I'm sure that's going to help. Just let's see what happens with the weather first.
What's the reception from the public been like?
Yeah, it's been good. The trouble is we're in the garage most of the day on practice day, so we don't really get out and see them really. So it's been good.
Now then, Tony, you spent a lot of time with Jenson this week. How do you feel he's going to go this weekend?
I think it'd go very well, like all the British drivers do. Like John did, 77, he nearly won here until he won in 81. Great performance. They always get a lift from the British crowd, but he gets a lift from his team as well. They love him too. There's a great story in the shootout with Junqueira. You know, the team are getting very excited, and Patrick Head had come to the final shootout, and they're all getting like, and he said, keep quiet, calm down, because these war-weary guys never normally show any reaction, but they love their driver.
John, Jenson Button?
I think he's brilliant. He proved that when he tested for Prost prior to Christmas. They realised there was something very special in Jenson Button, and it's really his composure, his ability to deal with all those stresses and pressures and not be fazed by it at all, and in fact give back very good information from the immediate time he drove that car, and it can only get better from now on for Jenson.
Good, thanks very much indeed, John. Kevin Keegan, manager of England with the all-British Jaguar team. Kevin, a visitor today, and one of his Euro 2000 strikers, Michael Owen. He's also been at Silverstone getting a flavour of the Jaguars with Johnny Herbert. We will hear from Michael, and there's our competition as well. That's when you rejoin us. Now our competition. If you like your football as well as your motor racing, this one is right up your street.
It's a classic ITV doubleheader of great sporting action. The FA Cup final and the European Grand Prix on the same weekend. You could be at both of them. We're giving away VIP trips for two to the match and the race on the weekend of the 20th of May. We'll whisk you from Wembley to the Nürburgring with top hospitality all the way. We also have a couple of great runners-up prizes. There's a replica of Mika Häkkinen's race helmet and the actual gloves and drinks bottle he's using this weekend. And the second runners-up prize, that's a magnum of Mum Champagne as used on the podium, and the actual 3 corks from the bottles of bubbly sprayed at this Sunday's Silverstone celebrations. So for your chance to win, just answer this question. Bridge Corner is a feature of the Silverstone track, but which English football club plays at the Bridge? Is it A, Northampton Town, B, Chelsea, or C, Aston Villa? A, Northampton Town, B, Chelsea, or C, Aston Villa? And here's the number to dial. 09065 811 811. 09065 811 811. The lines will close on Wednesday the 3rd of May. We'll announce the winners of the Spanish Grand Prix in a couple of weeks' time, and the very best of luck to you all.
Yeah, good luck with that. You can check the details of that competition, of course, on the ITV F1 website. Well, we've had David Coulthard and John Watson in here today, and delighted to say Nigel Mansell will be with us tomorrow for our qualifying show. It's the first time that Nigel has joined us, and he'll be with us here on ITV tomorrow throughout the qualifying session. And we are looking forward to seeing him and to hearing from him. Extensive coverage, of course, throughout the weekend, qualifying from 12:30 tomorrow. Now, you be sure to join Tony for a Grand Prix theme night from 8 o'clock on ITV2 tomorrow night. A lot of good stuff in that. And the race, we'll be joined by Sir Sterling Moss before the off at 12 noon. The race off at 1 o'clock, and all reaction, analysis and comment in our highlight show at 11:15 Sunday night. Right. Let's join Michael Owen, shall we, for a little glimpse behind the scenes at Jaguar.
Driving this Jaguar is out of the question. Mrs. Houllier and Keegan would both be pretty upset. The team's media chief, Cameron Kelleher, shows Owen the ropes.
On an average lap here, would the normal race day be how many seconds quicker?
Well,
do they go absolutely flat out on this one?
Yeah, they would, yeah. But in the wet, it's probably, today it's probably about 12 seconds slower.
Just to go in and see all the different parts and how the body is broken down, and how can you take bits off, and all these different things was mind-boggling.
So a totally different sporting experience, but Michael Owen still looks very comfy, even when the snappers produce the obligatory ball. It's Johnny Herbert's motor though, and the 95 Silverstone winner is happy to lend a hand.
This is your one, isn't it? Yeah. It's as if you're lying down, just with your head sticking out. Your legs really go down, quite far down the bonnet. That's how I call it. I don't know what the technical name is. But yeah, your legs go right down, and you're so close to the floor. I mean, I couldn't go 50 mile an hour in one of them, I don't think.
The Herbert-Owen partnership go a lot quicker around Silverstone. We'll drive with them before Sunday's Grand Prix.
First thing I'm doing.
KSET 102, by the way, if you are Merseyside fans, or the Liverpool fans are worried with the Merseyside derby coming up. We did it a few days ago, not this afternoon. Right, John, how are the Jaguars going to go here?
Well, Eddie Irvine was quick today, but of course it doesn't count. It's qualifying tomorrow afternoon. Eddie's done well in qualifying. If he can get a grid position near to the front, he can run with the front cars. It's just getting clear of that group of cars, about 10 of them who are covered by half a second. So he'll want to be at the head of that group.
We're all swimming in deep water a bit, aren't we? Can you draw any conclusions after what's happened here today?
I looked back to the test last week, and Ferrari were very quick. It's going to be a dry race on Sunday, there's no question about that. And
sure?
On that basis, Mika Hakkinen will win. If it happens to be wet, it depends how wet it is. It could be thoroughly soaking like it was this afternoon, or as it is now. Don't forget Frenson last year in the French Grand Prix. He and the Jordan team did a stunning job, and they could do the same here again on Sunday if it's wet. But I'm praying for a dry.
Quick full stop from you, Tony.
Well, I think they're going to prepare their ships for bad weather, I really do, and prepare for a storming drive by Michael Schumacher in those circumstances. If he can get off the line, he's made some pretty tawdry starts so far this year, and just watch out, see if he can make it.
John, Tony, thank you very much indeed. So here's the state of play at Silverstone. All car parks closed tomorrow. Just travel by coach or helicopter. It should be all right on Sunday. If I were you, I'd stay at home though and watch this space.
If you would like to know more about Formula One, the website address sponsored by livesport365.com is www.itv.